Bungie did something amazing with the release of Destiny 2 The Final Shape. They added a new Nightfall reward called the Scintillation Linear Fusion Rifle. And guess what? It's actually good. So in today's review, we're going to go over all the perks so you guys know what to look for when you guys are hunting down that perfect god roll. Let's do this. The Scintillation is currently dropping from the Glassway Grandmaster, and it is also double loot week. So every time upon completion, you're going to get 2 Adept drops. Now this linear sits in the power slot, and it does strand damage, and it is an adaptive burst, fires a 3-round burst. These linears are really good for PvE content, especially when you're dealing with a boss with a huge crit spot. Now when we compare this to some other adaptive bursts, you got the Briar's Contempt from the Root of Nightmares raid, the Dune Partitioner from Season of the Wish, Fire and Forget from Season of the Seraph, and the Storm Chaser from the Duality dungeon. The Scintillation has better base stats than all these other linear fusion rifles, except for the Briar's Contempt, but that is to be expected because the Briar's Contempt is a raid weapon, and raid weapons tend to always drop with slightly higher stats. But other than that, this weapon really stands on its own because it's one of the only strand linears. We do have another strand linear from the Gambit playlist, but I literally have never heard anybody talk about that. So you know what? We're not going to talk about it either. Now this weapon does come with basic origin traits. You've got Stunning Recovery. Stunning a champion partially refills your magazine, triggers health regeneration, and improves recovery for a short duration. It refills 25% of the magazine from reserves, restores 60 HP, and grants 40 recovery for 3 seconds. And you have Vanguard's Vindication. Final blows with this weapon grant a small amount of health. Each final blow is going to grant you 10 HP. Definitely not a lot of HP. I would skip out on this one. Then you have Vice Stinger. Damaging an enemy with this weapon has a small chance to reload the magazine and increase movement speed while aiming down sights. This is definitely the perk that you guys want to go with. Gonna refill 25% of the magazine from reserves on activation. Decreases ADS movement speed penalty by 10%. There is a 4-second cooldown between activations. Vice Stinger works really well with this adaptive 3 burst because each burst you're getting 3 hits in, which gives you more chances to get this to proc. In the first column of trait perks, you have Envious Assassin, Rapid Hit, Rewind Rounds, Slice, Cornered, and Auto-Loading Holster. Auto-Loading Holster states that when you put the weapon away, it automatically reloads after a short duration, specifically 2.5 seconds. This is going to be a really good perk on this weapon because you can always use something like the Izanagi in your kinetic slot or something like the Wither Horde, which also has Auto-Loading Holster. So when you switch to those other weapons, as soon as you take this linear back out, you can just keep on DPSing whatever encounter you're in. Top tier perk on this linear. Then you have Cornered. Usually it's on fusion rifles, not linear fusion rifles. States that you get a faster charge time when surrounded by combatants. Now this is very situational. Usually when you're doing damage with a linear fusion rifle, you're kind of far away, and when there are a lot of ads around, it's very distracting and very easy to die in the middle of a damage phase if you're surrounded by combatants. So it is very situational, but it's not completely useless. It does grant a 15% decreased charge time while within 15 meters of 2 enemies, so this could come in handy every now and again, but I wouldn't count on it all the time. Then you've got Slice. Casting your class ability allows this weapon to sever targets on hit for a brief duration. Now severing a target is going to allow them to do 40% less damage to you. I'm a really big fan of Slice, but I normally like it on special or primary weapons. Usually on your power weapon, you want a perk that's going to help you do more damage or increase your magazine in some way, so I don't think Slice is the best option in this slot. Moving on from there, we have a Rewind Rounds. When this weapon's magazine is empty, it refills from reserves based on the number of hits. It refills 60% of the number of hits landed into the magazine from reserves. This is a top tier perk on this linear fusion rifle because it's going to completely bypass the need for you to actually stop and manually reload. Then we have Rapid Hit. Rapid precision hits temporarily increase stability and reload speed. This perk stacks up to 5 times, and at a 5-time stack, you get 25 stability and 60 reload. Rapid Hit is also a really good perk on this weapon, but it kind of gets outshined by Rewind Rounds in my opinion. Then last but not least, you have Envious Assassin. Upon readying this weapon after scoring kills with other weapons, it refills and overfills the magazine from reserves based on the amount of weapon kills scored. And primary weapons are going to grant you 10% of the magazine capacity, and special and power weapons grant you 20% of the magazine back. So you can essentially double your magazine size with this perk. But if you're going into a damage phase and then the damage phase ends and you're not able to kill a lot of adds in between that and the next damage phase, this perk isn't going to help you out too much. And once you actually do run out of bullets in your magazine, you're going to have to manually reload, and Envious Assassin doesn't do anything to speed up that reload. Then in the last column of trait perks, you have Surrounded, Hatchling, Reservoir Burst, Bait and Switch, Firing Line, and Attrition Orbs. Attrition Orb states that dealing sustained damage creates an orb of power. Honestly, there are way easier ways to create orbs with weapons, like using a Siphon mod on your helmet. So on this linear specifically, I think it's kind of a waste of a perk slot in my opinion. Then you have Firing Line. This weapon deals increased precision damage when near 2 or more allies. Being within 15 meters of 2 allies grants 20% increased precision damage. This is a good damage dealing perk, but it's not going to help you out if you're solo, and if your teammates aren't next to you, it's going to be a wasted perk. And there are other damage perks in this column that give a higher damage increase, just like Bait and Switch. Bait and Switch states that deal damage with all equipped weapons within a short time to give this weapon a damage boost. Upon dealing damage with all equipped weapons within 7 seconds of each other, you're going to get a 30% increase in damage for 10 seconds. This is a much better perk than Firing Line because you can proc this all by yourself with no need for any teammates. Moving on from there, you have Reservoir Burst, another perk that's usually on fusion rifles. States that while the magazine is at or above the maximum capacity, it's going to give you a 25% increase to damage and cause enemies to explode on death. Now this perk pairs perfectly with the first column perk Envious Assassin because you can overflow the magazine. So let's say your base magazine is 6. If you have Envious Assassin and you get it up to 14 or 15 or 16, from 15 all the way to 6, you're going to be getting 25% increase to damage. But it does completely rely on you to have an overflowed magazine, which isn't going to happen all the time. Then you have Hatchling, Precision Final Blows, or rapidly defeating targets with this spawn a Threadling at the target's location. I really like Hatchling, but I don't really like it on power weapons, because power weapons really should be meant for just damaging bosses. And if you're just damaging a boss with this linear fusion rifle, you're not really going to get the final blow on it. And if you're using your power weapon to clear red bar adds, what the hell is wrong with you where you dropped on your head? Moving on from there, we have Surrounded. This weapon grants bonus damage when 3 or more enemies are in close proximity. This is going to be the biggest damage increase at a 40% increase to damage that lingers for 1.5 seconds after those enemies are no longer near you. Once again, just like the other perk in the last column, Cornered, it's going to be very situational, and especially in that higher end content, if you guys are surrounded by enemies, you usually get melted pretty fast. And they did recently nerf the Warlock Super Well of Radiance, so being surrounded by combatants is just not the play in my opinion. But like I said, it is situational, and you may be able to find a good use for this. So Guardians, now that we went over all the perks, what is the god roll for this linear? Well, in my opinion, you're going to want a rewind rounds and bait and switch. And you're definitely going to want to increase your magazine size, so go with something like enhanced battery. And since you need to switch between all your weapons to proc bait and switch, you can go with something like Fluted Barrel, which is going to increase your handling and help you take out the weapon even faster. And then for your masterwork, I would look for a charge time masterwork. And then if you have the adept version, you can put on an adept charge time mod. Now the combination of rewind rounds paired with Vice Stinger is going to pretty much ensure that you will never have to actually reload during a damage phase. I mean, look at this clip that I have right here. This thing is nasty. If you guys are new here and found this video helpful, don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you guys are new. Leave a like if you enjoyed the content. Follow me over on Twitch for the live streams, and I'll catch you guys in the next episode. Peace.